Hello friends, it's Tonton from State 948. Today I want to make the first guide that I announced, which will be not about report, but will be about stats, like how do the game arrive to these numbers, right? Where are they coming from, how is it working, and there are a lot of things we have to talk about. I'll try to make the most complete video and up-to-date video on the topic. And hopefully it helps you as well. So we'll explain, what are the different percentages and how do they work basically. Are they additive or multiplicative percentages when it comes to the sources of your stats and the difference between these two? That's basic math, but that could help. Then I'll review a bit, all the sources basically, and are they additive, are they multiplicative? So I'll kind of explain the stats themselves, and then we'll go through, what should you focus on, and things like that, because some of them are multiplicative, so they are a lot more valuable than the other ones, but they have huge downsides as well. So the game is fairly balanced, if that makes sense. It's not weird the way they went about the stats and stuff. It's fairly straightforward. So I want to cover it all today and give you hopefully the most up-to-date information that you could find. I did a lot of testing, but I have to give credits to where it's due. I initially started with the WOS Nerds Discord. I have a lot of information here on that, but it was lacking, which they pointed out to Shield Gaming video about it. Which is missing a few sources of damage, but overall is very accurate and the best explanation actually I could find. I will just word it a bit differently. I think it will be a bit clearer, and I put everything nicely in a spreadsheet that I'll share with you at the end of the video. You don't need to ask in the comment, but please say thank you. So the comment section is active if you enjoy it, right? Basically. So I'm not gonna trick you in asking for it. I'll give it to you right away. But yeah, let's go with the video. So the game has a lot of sources of stats, and if you are not I don't know, for me, I'm coming from a PC game background. I play World of Warcraft, I play Diablo games, so you always care about understanding how your damage is. In such game, you do damage to enemies, to other players, and you always care. I always care at least to understand how it is calculated. So I assume that in Whiteout Survival, like a lot of what we call theory crafting or that kind of stuff was made about it, and I'm sure it was done by some alliances and they understand the game very thoroughly, but it's not available on YouTube, it's not available on Discords, at least not where am I. So if you know very good source of information, which I did not talk about in this video, please feel free to share them, and I'm happy to share them. The Shield Gaming video was really helpful, so kudos to him. And he got it from one of his viewers, which probably from one of the alliance. I've done a lot of tests. So today I'll go trying to show you basics maths to start with. Let's see if it's working. Is the calculator coming online, right? So let's say I just want to cover the difference between something that is additive with percentages and something that is multiplicative, right? So if you have an additive percentage, so let's say I have 500% lethality, and I'm gaining the game. The game is telling me that from a charm, from whatever sources in the game, that I get 20% more lethality. If it's additive, you do 500 plus 20, you get 520. In terms of percentages, if you divide 20 by 500, in reality, that was a 4% increase, right? If I multiply by 100, right? A 20% additive. Sorry, so it's 1004. I think I can do that. Times, I don't want to have the history actually, but that's okay, right? It's 4%. So something that is additive that was 20% is in reality, if the base is 500, it's actually 4% increase. So, you have 500 and you have 520. So that's for something that's additive. If it was multiplicative, you have 500, you multiply it by 20%, so that will be the increase, right? So that's 20%. So it's 100, so you have to add 100 to the base, right? Plus the base is 500, so you get 600. So you see the difference between an additive stat, which is plus 20, you know, that's it. And if it's plus 20%, and if it's a multiplicative, then you get out of 500, you get 600. So you see why it's a big deal, right? Let's say you have 1000% lethality, and it's a 20% buff, and you know it's actually 200 points you will get if it's a multiplicative source versus an additive source. So you want, usually in games, you know, if you do damages, you will care to take more percentages that are multiplicative, because if it's 30% increase, you will do 30% more. If it's 20% but additive, you will do 4% more in the example I gave you with 500. So you see that there is a big difference between something that's multiplicative and something that's additive. Now that it's clear, and that, you know, that should be reminding you of some math you did, I don't know, when you were 10, 12, 14, whichever, based on your country, I guess. But at some point, that was taught to me in school. I had to revisit it not too long ago, because I totally forgot about it myself. But, you know, no blame if you don't remember that. But that's really important to understand. So what do you see in the document that I'm showing now? These on the left, and that's what I will share with you, are all the sources of damage, right? So hero stars. So let me do that. Let me do that. Let me hide my face, right? Let's do on the right like that. And so heroes, when I mean heroes percentage, I mean from the stars, right? So if you look at it, if you look here, that these ones, right? These ones, attack and defense, right? So these are additive. So if we look at hero gear stats, there was a difference actually. There's a row too much. Hero gear stat. So you know that's additive as well. I tested all of it, or I watched, you know, people testing it, and I double check most of it. So I double check everything that Shield Gaming shared in his video. Did some tests with one of my Alliance teammates. I did some test alone. So nearly all of it was double checked. There is one thing that was not double checked yet, and I'll mention it later. But all of these are additive, right? So and the way it was presented, to make it clear in Shield Gaming video, was everything that's permanent is additive. Everything that's temporary is multiplicative. And that's true 95% of the time. We'll talk about it very quickly, but you can see that Widget is partially additive, partially multiplicative, and there are some buffs that are permanent, that are actually, that Widget is actually what's making his statements wrong, basically, but everything else is actually true. That's a very simple way to think about it. If it's a permanent increase, so like charms, chief gear, hero gear, it's additive. So I'm gonna go through the list very quickly, but we will talk about one that is very important to understand, is Widget. So stats from the stars are additive, hero gear is additive, and widgets, you have two options, right? And when I look at the widget, you have let me look at this one, for example. So this one is for exploration. And the widget is giving you these stats as well. So I'm not talking about exploration. I actually did not make a lot of tests about exploration. So I'm more talking about expedition. So rallies, solo marching on the battlefield. So foundry, SVS, dueling another player. I'm talking mostly about that today. And I did not double check that what I'm sharing today is different in exploration. So in arena and exploration, basically here, right? So I did not double check all of it. I checked some, but not all of it. So if you know there is a difference, please feel free to bring it to me. I'll do that later. It was already a lot of work, and I wanted, and it's not, it's really not that as important, I think, for most people. So widgets, the first one is usually a skill, so you don't care too much about it. The second one is multiplicative. That's the only exception of a permanent buff that is multiplicative. So that's 5% else. If I had 5% else, it would not give me 505%, it would give me 550. So that's how the whales are making a big difference with you. And we talk about widget at the end of the video more, but I wanted to call it out immediately. So these ones are additive. So this one, if you had 500, you will have 51605 at the percentage. Plus, then on top of that, so the multiplicative percentage are calculated at the end of the process. So the game is adding all the additive percentages. So, everything you see on the left, just let me check here, you see it properly. everything you see on the left. So it's adding, you know, Chief Gear, Chief Charm, Research, VIP, Alliance Tech. When I talk about Geronimo and Natalia, I'm talking about these skills that are, you know, increase, even if they're not in the rally, it's increasing stats, right? So Geronimo and Natalia. So I'm talking about all of that. All of these, skin, facilities, island bonuses, territory attacker defense if you are in an alliance and you are, you know, your city is inside. Pets, when I'm talking about pets and refinements, I'm talking about all of these plus all of these, right? All of these are all additive percentages, basically. So the game is making a big sum of all of that. And at the end, when you get the big sum, it's multiplying by the multiplicative ones, right? So if you have only one source of multiplicative percentages, which come from widgets, for example, then it will be 5%. If I unlock that widget, right? If that widget was unlocked, it would be 5%. And that's why, again, that's one way for whales to basically be a lot stronger in rallies than free-to-play or lower spender, is because they will have widgets level 10, and that's why widgets level 10 are so important for rally leaders. They are really so important, and you can see you can have defense, attack, lethality, health. So that's why sometimes there are, you know, older generation of heroes or combination of heroes that are better because you will get, you know, the right stats. You will stack health, or you will stack lethality, or you will stack defense, or, you know, and that will make you that you will achieve the goal you want. So that the only exception to what Shield Gaming shared in his video are actually widget, but this skill of widget, the expedition skill. Everything else is additive. So that's something to understand, and that's really important. So, you know, if you look at your research here, it's all additive. If you look at your charms and chief gear, it's all additive. If you look at your VIP here, it's all additive. Facilities, you know, and all of the things you get from that, it's all additive from your research. So, you know, 5% is, again, additive, means from 500, you go to 505. And if it was multiplicative, you will go to 550. So again, that's just to be clear. So all of that. So you will have access to the documents with all the sources. So city skins, all the skins you can think of, all of these are all additive. None of them are multiplicative. Even the, you know, these ones that are a bit more expensive, they are 2% lethality, so it's plus 2%, right? So it's the game is not always very clear the way it shows. But if you look on widgets, I actually did not pay attention to that precisely on widgets. You know, it's like there's a difference when it says by 5% and plus 2%, right? That's multiplied by 5%. So that's 50 out of 500, for example. And plus 2% is literally plus 2%. So it's 500 to 502 or 2000 to 2002, for example. So what are the other sorts of multiplicative one that you care about, right? That you really care about? Of course, you have pet buffs. So these are multiplicative when it's not a flat value. So march speed, you see it's by, so that's how you recognize it in the game. It's either plus X% or by X%. And I'm not sure they are consistent with the wording, so I would not trust that 100%. My experience with game is like developers make mistakes sometimes and they change something or they word it poorly, and I'm not sure Whiteout did an amazing job at not being confusing with that, but the games could be often. So that's, you know, multiplicative. That will be multiplicative percentage, even if it's removing, that will be multiplicative. And it's a buy, but it's not a percentage, right? So it's of course adding 12,000 troops to your marching capacity, right? So that's something I put here. You know, I put deployment rally march capacity. It's additive, but it's not a percentage, so of course it's additive. If that makes sense. But the other one are all marked as, you know, either the increase or decrease. They are all marked, so they remove a percentage, right, of someone, or they add a percentage to it, so they are multiplicative. So that's the main source for free-to-play. You will get multiplicative percentage. So if you focus on lethality, for example, you might want to have that pet that is higher level, and you might want to have that pet that is higher level, right? Because like these, for free-to-play, they might not be as strong, you know, but if you care to do damage on bear, then all troop attacks is good as well, right? So these 3 pets are really good for you if you are, I don't think the health matter on bear, actually, the reduction of health, but, you know, you can always still pop it. So that's it will be your three main source of doing damage and stuff if you care to do that. And mostly the only other sources of multiplication, right, are CT buff. And CT buff are all of these, right? And these, if you look at it, is by 10%, right? Or 20. So these are multiplicative. So between the pets, between the widgets, and between the 20% buff, that's how whales are scaling up crazily. And that's how they're, because they're adding sources of percentages from, charms, chief gear, heroes, widgets, hero gear, research, fire crystal research, and they have higher level troops. So when you multiply, if you increase your troops, for example, let's say to, so that's the stats of a Lancer that is, T10, right? So lethality 12, attack 23. If you go to T11, it's attack 25 plus lethality 24. So, if that's multiplied by 1000%, it's a lot, right? 1 point more here. Or, if you have T10 versus T11, it looks like 1 point lethality, but some people are close to 3000% lethality. So that point of lethality is multiplied by 3. So it's a lot of damage, plus they will have more health and everything, right? So that's how they really scale up, basically, because the only other multiplicative sources are the skills during Frost Dragon Tyrant that we could check, basically. We checked that during the live stream Sunday. So these are multiplicative. But these are not really accessible outside of Tyrant, right? The Tyrant buff, I did not double check. That the only things I could not check, and I did not ask the Tyrant to give me a buff to check. But Tyrant can give you buffs. It can give you view Tyrant benefits, appoint title. It can give you some of these. And they are plus 20%, right? They are not at by 20%, so these are additive. I'm 99% sure they are additive. I did not double check, but I'm pretty sure they are additive, right? So that's the only thing I could not double check. So you get the list, but basically the only multiplicative one are your widgets, and we'll talk about it in a sec, and pets and buffs. Everything else is additive, but as simple as that. You have heroes as well that you could consider, and I checked a lot. I check all guides and what people are saying, but they don't show in reports, so they have an impact. The first 4 joiners with the highest skills are shared with your rally leaders or your garrison, right? The first 4 joiners in a rally. So Patrick is increasing health and stuff, but that is not reflected in the report yet. So somehow the game is using it to calculate the outcome of a battle, but you cannot see it in the report. So I've seen some guides on Discord from older, people involved in the community, like Why Bandit Y, saying that one day it might be available in reports, and it's still not. So I double checked everything. I click on all the button, it's still not showing. One way, and we'll talk about report another time, but the multiplicative sources can be found here. So everything that's here is usually, even if it's a plus, right? It's not by, it's a plus, so it's confusing. But these are multiplicative. So you see the buffs from Tyrants, the pets, and that the city buff, right? So that's one thing, but I'll make another video about the report. So that's simple. So what do you do with that? Okay, Tonton, you told us, that all the stats except a few are additive. When you see, that it's all additive. These are additive as well. They are not multiplicative. Otherwise, they will be insane, right? That will be, 70% attack, 30% defense. These are all additive. Again, exploration, I don't care about it. I did not check. I don't really matter yet to me. I don't really spend much time thinking about exploration. But if you have someone that did a lot of tests and make a lot of testing, I'm interested as well to understand that side of the game better. But it's quite straightforward exploration in many ways. So what do you do? So one way to think about it is you have different stats. So you have lethality, health, attack, defense, and you have different sources. So research, charms, chief gear, chief charm, all of that. So first is to understand the better stats. The better stats are overall health, lethality, so health is better than defense, and lethality is better than attack. So you will find it everywhere. Many people did that. The impact of health, and let's say that to be black and white, it's 99% of the time the case. There might be a edge case where one is better than the other, but if you speak to any strong rally leader, they will tell you focus on health and lethality. It has a lot more impact. It has a lot more impact on rallies. Lethality has more impact on damage on the bear and stuff like that. So these are the priorities. So when you think about stats, you have 4 options, right? I'll write on the... I'll do it here for you guys. So if you... either... so health is better than defense, and lethality is better than attack. So you have 2 options to think about it, right? Either you focus on health and defense, basically, and so there is another metric because there is like troops, so infantries, lancers, marksmen, right? You care about health and defense. Sorry. Can you see? No, you cannot see. I need to do that, right? That's kind of how you think about it, right? Let me zoom a bit bigger, and let me put it in the middle of the screen, right? So your infantries, you care about health and defense. That's a priority. So when you do your research, and I've not always followed that in the past that strictly, so it's not always true to me, but it's now. So if you look at my health is maxed out, right? And I might have some defense to do. Here I have some defense to do. So on my, I'll shoot that, for example, in my research and stuff. Lethality over attack for lancers and marksmen, so that's very straightforward. So you will focus on that wherever it is. So that means that, and there is the order of troops, right? So you have often, most people will suggest you, so you have like the different troops, different stats, plus the order of the troops and the order of the stats. So I'm trying to make it clear for you guys. I did not plan to go to that much detail, so that's something I could have planned a bit better. But often the average suggestion will be to go to infantry first, because you will always use, when you fight, when you do, labyrinth and stuff, you often use a troop ratio that is, I've done mine. But if you do polar and stuff, often what you will use as a troop ratio will be something like 50, 20, 30, and stuff like that. So you will use more infantry, a bit less lancers, and more marksmen than lancers. So that's kind of give you the order of troops, right? Most likely will be infantry first, marksmen second, and lancer last. And within that, you will do infantry, you will do health first, and then defense, and then lethality, and then attack on infantry. On marksmen, you will do lethality, attack, health, defense. On lancers, you will do lethality, attack, health, defense. Then you have different options. You can do health on infantry, and then lethality on marksmen, then lethality on lancer, then you can do defense on infantry, then attack on marksmen, then attack on defense. Or some people will tell you, oh, no, infantry is more important than everything else. You do health, then defense, then you do lethality and attack on marksmen, then you do lethality and attack on lancers. That's where people do not really agree. So you have to kind of decide for yourself. For me, I'm suggesting mostly... I don't want to show it exactly, but I'll just copy paste it to you guys. I'll just take I'll put it in the document so you have it as well when you open the document, right? And I'll zoom a bit. I'll just get it here. So let's do another tab, and let's do... it's not really... Or, yeah, I'll make it prettier. Let me actually remove it. Let me actually work with an image. So I'll give you 2 suggestions of orders what you can do basically, right? And you do you care to do it, you don't care to do it, I don't. It's really up to you. So that's these 2. Let's zoom out a bit. That's the suggestion I gave to my alliance, right? So either you do health defense first on infantry, then marksman, lethality, attack, and you kind of do troop by troops. or you do health, lethality, defense, attack on them, right? But the reality is, it's not that simple. It's never that simple, you know, because you will find yourself in a situation where increasing health and lethality will start to take, you know, you will have a research that's gonna take, I don't know, you want to do these, you know, these used to take 18 days. So let's say it was health on infantry, it takes 20 days or something. So it will be better to do some lethality on your marksman and your lancers, for example. If you care to do damage on bears, mostly it will come from marksman. So that's a viable choice as well for a free-to-play player. Will be basically to focus a lot more on marksman first, right? So you have a few choices here. So, but that's kind of giving you the order of priority. It's often marksman, infantry, marksman, lancers, some rally leaders. And if you watch that, and if you're a whale, and if you look at some of the report I have here, you will see that more and more, after Gen 5 or 4, the troop ratio for defense is 60 infantry and 40 lancers, a percentage, right? So some attack is still often 50, 20, 30 in terms of ratio. So we'll still use marksman to attack, but when you defend and you stack health on these troops notably, but particularly on them, and lethality on lancers. Sorry, one sec, I need to cough. So if you are a rally leader, at some point, some people in starting, you know, in Gen 4, 5, 6, 7, they really, like, heroes for lancers are very good, so they focus a lot more on lancers in defense and in offense. So you will want to increase 3 of them, but you know, you can focus a bit more here. So what's my recommendation, right? So you have your priority. Likely your infantry more important than your marksmen, and marksmen more important than your lancers. Your lethality and health is more important. So what are the sources of lethality and health? Charms are, and chief gear is not, right? So charms are a lot more important than chief gear. Chief gear is giving actually attack and defense, and chief gear is actually one of the worst things in the game to spend on, because chief gear, you don't really increase good stats. They are not as good as charms. And you are not using your chief gear in arena. Charms are good stats, it's health and lethality, but you are not using it in arena. So what most people tend to do, they do the research, they do all of that, and they do the hero gear, because the hero gear, you will get it to exploration, you will get it to arena, and hero gear can give you health on certain piece and lethality on the other, right? So head and boot is lethality, and health is on belt and gloves, right? So infantry, you do a lot more on your belt and gloves, and on your marksman and your lancers, you do a lot more on your head and boots, right? So you get more lethality out of that, but you get health, because health and, you know, on infantry and lancers is not really important. Some people decide to skip these, right? They don't do the level of Essence Stone and all of that. They really decide to skip it. So that's kind of the overall strategy, right? So you will focus on all the sources of health and defense more than health and lethality more than attack and defense, wherever they are, and you can always go back to that document if you need to. I could actually, you know, put attack, defense. I could maybe just do that before I publish it, you know, just edit the source, something like that. So you have an ID, but you know, by then you should really know that in the game. If you play a bit carefully, you should know. So the last thing I wanted to cover today, we are nearly below half an hour, so I'm really happy. Did not want it to make too long. So of course, these percentages, like I said, are boosting your stats from your troops. So, you know, the higher your level of troops are, the more the stats are relevant, because, you know, they are boosting. So that's why you want to focus on Fire Crystal level as well. It's kind of work together. And it's widgets. So what do you do with widgets? What do you do with widgets if widgets have the only permanent source of multiplicative damage, right? Because the other source is when you activate pets and when you pop buffs. So either with gems, or you get them from events in the game, or from fortresses, right? And the issue with heroes is heroes in their design, they are temporary. They are not permanent. You will keep them forever, but your Gen 1 heroes will be obsolete when you have Gen 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? 7, 8, 6. Of course, your Gen 1 heroes will be irrelevant. They're gonna get too weak because every generation, your heroes are giving you more stats for their stars. So if you look at Gen 5, maxed out, it's 540.43, right? So if I look at Gen 5, it's maxed out as well, it's 444, right? So it's nearly 100 less. Then I look at Gen 4, it's again 70% less of attack and defense. Gen 3, it's not. I don't have Gen 3 maxed, so I cannot compare. But you see, like, it's basically decreasing, right? The older the heroes hero are, and the skills are often better. So, for example, I'm using these two heroes. Bradley is only 3 stars compared to a Gwen that is 5-star Gen 5. Bradley allowed me to clear like 15 stage. With Bradley and Edith, that is not maxed as well, I clear like, I don't know, 20 extra stage of exploration, and these heroes are not maxed. Bradley, he doesn't have a widget, he's 3 stars, he has skills level 4. Edith is not maxed out at all, she has skills level 5. So newer heroes are so much stronger that they will replace. So while they are permanent, your heroes, in case of you are never losing, you're basically never losing them. I still have my Natalia, I still have my Geronimo. You will stop using them at some point. So they are kind of temporary in many ways. So what do you do? So my suggestion is to really target certain heroes to go for widgets on. If you are not a rally leader, if you are a rally leader, and you are one of the stronger players of the states, you will need to invest in widgets to stay a rally leader. If you don't want to stay a rally leader, I will actually highly suggest you to spend a lot less on heroes. Some people do that mistake. They take the 3 heroes every time, plus they do the widgets. Some people calculated that a hero, if you buy everything, it's roughly 500-600 if you don't have the shards from the game and you don't have the widgets. So imagine the amount of money you will spend every generation, which is every 80 days. So that's a bit less than 3 months. You might spend 500,000 euros on heroes, right? Just on heroes. And then 3, 4, 5 months later, they will be obsolete. So if you would have spent that money on charms, for example, maxim charms to 11 is a few thousand euros. If you do it on cheap packs and stuff, if you really optimize it, some people calculated you could do it with $3,000, right? Maxim charms, I think. I didn't double check the math. It's from a long time ago, so packs are even better today, but I believe it was, what was his name? Bash Brothers that calculated that for people that watch YouTube. He used to stream, to make content for Whiteout Survival. What you could invest in heroes, you could invest in charms and get a lot better on hero gear and get it in arena. So, be careful if you invest in heroes. What are the heroes that are really worth it for free to play or spenders? Geronimo, you will use him until very, very late, Gen 5, Gen 6, even Gen 7, you will often use him. So if you unlock and max out Geronimo, his widget is really worth it. Mia could be a good one because you will basically use her for bear. Let me double check the widget. It's increasing troop attack, so it's not that good, but that you will use her for bear until Gen 7, 8, 9 as well. So you could keep her for a very long time. But then it will be depending on which hero you use, right? For example, and what are the widgets. But the best thing you want at the free-to-play will be often if they do increase lethality, which is very rare. So you do more damage on bear. So my strategy for widget, how do I think about it? I'm not a rally leader, and it will cost me money to invest. So I put them level 2, 3, 4, depending a bit on what I can do, depending on how many heroes I do per generation. So sometimes there are 3, sometimes there are 4. And I'm doing that with Tundra Trading Station and a bit of Frosty Fortune. But I spend a bit of money on Frosty Fortune. I buy the pack for the full event, plus I buy the €1 pack every time, which is like €12 per Frosty Fortune, which you have 8 to 10 times a year, basically more closer to 9-10 times a year. So yeah, it's costing a bit to be able to do that. But what is important is basically if you care, if you go for widget, like the first one is helping you a lot with arena and exploration because it's giving an extra skill often. So that's an extra skill to your hero. So they have 3 skills, so you get a 4th skill. Then it's giving you stats right here. The first level of stats give you 5%. and the extra level give you 2.5 and they take more widgets. So for 5 widgets, you get 5% lethality. And to get 7.5% lethality, you need to add 10 widgets. So you see like it costs you twice much to get twice less, basically. So the first level is really good, and 5%, you know, if you have 300 lethality, it's gonna be 315. If you have 500, it's gonna be 525. If you have 1000, it's gonna be it's gonna be 1100, right? Because these again are multiplicative percentages. So the 5% could be, you know, or 10%, sorry, that was actually 10%, or it will be out of 1000 will be 1050, right? It could have a decent impact. So you might want to go to level, you know, 2. That's okay. Maybe if you really care about arena on a very strong hero for arena, maybe you go with level 3 sometimes. You know, for most of us, free to play, low spenders, that's fairly enough. You know, you put 1, 2, 3 level on your widgets and you will be good. I go to 3 or 4 because I can afford it, basically, because I spend a tiny bit. I paid like 12 euro per Frosty Fortune. That helps me to get extra widget on top of fire crystals and everything I want to get there. But you don't really need to have to. What mistakes I'm seeing, and I think I got a report from one of my teammates. No, I did not keep it. But I see some people that have my power, and they have widgets that are level 6, 7, 8, 10, right? So they are my level of spending, and they have widgets that are a lot stronger. So what mistake do they do? That means in Frosty Fortune, they are buying only widgets. They are not buying fire crystals, and that means that their troops level are lower, and their troops level will always follow them. That means that they are buying packs for widgets, you know, either from here, or either they are buying this pack. Where is it? This pack, right? Mystery badge. So they are buying that, and they are trying to get widget on a discount, which is a bit of a cheaper way to buy widgets when they are 20-50% discount, right? So they are spending money on widgets, and widgets will be obsolete. So most of us keep widgets, do, you know, level 1, 2, 3 with your Tundra trading station, get 10 widgets from there. You know, I will do, if you care about arena, do 1 level. If you care to do tiny bit more damage on bear, because that's really little, you know, do 2 levels. If you are really like a low spender to medium spender, maybe do level 3 or 4. But I would not suggest to push, except a few heroes you're gonna keep for a long time. Again, Geronimo, maybe Mia. She's not the best in terms of fighting and battlefield, but you will keep her for bear. It's really debatable, right? But that's a hero you will keep using for a long time. Or like someone like Bradley, for example. For me, I might consider pushing Bradley to level 6, because Bradley is one of the best hero for... he's amazing as a marksman. I'll keep him for long, so maybe I'll go a bit above with Bradley. I'll use it in my marches, in my rallies and stuff. But you basically go low on widgets, push a few heroes from time to time, maybe a bit higher, particularly if you are medium spender. I think it could be worth it, but pick your heroes very carefully, and don't do blanket widget level 6 everywhere. I think long term you will get a lot more by, you know, spending on charms and spending on hero gear, basically. So that's kind of what I wanted to say, guys, about today's video. I'll share the spreadsheet in the comments. I'll call it suggestion, stat order suggestion. So yeah, so you know, if you are not sure what to do, that could be one way to go about it, basically. That's my, again, we talk about the details, so you can come up with your own, you know, strategy and plans, basically. But yeah, I hope it was helpful, guys. I hope it's clarifying everything about it. And thank you very much for whoever helped me, for whoever, you know, worked on that in the past. I thought that the classification by Shield Gaming was actually a good way to think about it. The only exception are widgets, half of the widgets actually. So yeah, that's a very simple way to think about it, and you have all it available. And if something is, you know, in your testing or anything look off, wrong, different, please, you know, show evidence, contact me in game, contact me on Discord or somewhere else. We'll review it, but I want to keep that up to date, because somehow it was very hard to find, and you know, it was really hard to keep in mind as well, because it was not written with details somewhere else, at least that I could find. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I see you tomorrow then for a report, how to read reports video. Cheers, bye-bye.